Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce for today's show, the 34th installment of Overtime. Same thing as always, going to talk some individuals, some team performances, some game reviews, some game previews, and I think we're going to do a little conference reviews. Or
we're going to talk.
I forget how you worded it on the doc. Conference breakdowns.
Yeah, because we've got some conferences that are going to be coming down to the wire here across our area. So, talk about that a little bit. Not go real too in depth on it because you can check out our scoreboard page. I think it's the Haynes Chiropractic scoreboard page over on SOSA, Ohio.
Standings page?
Yeah, standings, whatever.
The North Fork Animal Clinic scoreboard, the Haynes Family Healthcare standings page or something. Yeah. So, as always, we'll start with boys. Start with standout performances, and then girls will follow after. Same format, and I feel like I say it every time now.
Right.
Timestamps down below. It's just a menu of what we're going to talk about in the episode. If you see something you like, you can just skip right to it, so you don't have to sit through the whole episode waiting to see if we talk about something you're interested in. So we'll start off with a guy. I don't know if we've talked about him individually on this show yet, but we've definitely mentioned him as we've talked about the team a lot, and they're a front runner in their league. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about the SOC2 specifically, but
I think we will next week.
Yeah. But Tanner Bolin, 80 points in two straight games, or not 80 points in two, 80 combined points in two games is pretty good, but 50 points in the win over Western.
Yeah, anytime you get a 50 burger, especially in a game where your team scored 60, and they obviously needed all of them because it was a 60-48 win over Western. I know Connor Lentz missed a little bit of time this week with an ankle injury, so hopefully he's going to be back soon. But in the meantime, Tanner Bolin completely taking over. He had 30 in a 66-57 win over Eastern earlier in the week. I mean, seriously, 50. Like, it's a school record.
Tanner Bolin beat Western.
Yeah.
I mean, 50-48 alone.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
I'd say that's, I don't know how often that happens in our coverage. I mean, I'm sure you get some like honestly, some of the girls' games that are like 70-18 or whatever. Like, you probably have it, but
yeah, but
in a game that's a 12-point
like
margin,
a competitive game, yeah. I've seen it once. I can't think of the kid's name. It was Minford. They were playing Warren. It was a senior night. The kid had like 52 or 53, and it was unbelievable. And it was like a really good Warren team, and he just completely put him on his back. And I feel like that's pretty much what Tanner Bolin did in that game against Western. They also won against Whiteoak on Saturday, but we didn't get any stats on it, so he may have went over 100 over for the week. But yeah, if one of the baselines to having a really good career is 1,000 points. And if you get a 20th of the way there in one night, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Pretty good night. So, so the Mohawks 13-2 overall, 4-0 in the SOC2. They have not lost since we were there at Waverly, where they lost 60-50 in that game. So, they only play once this week. They host South Gallia on Friday, who's 7-7, 1-3 in the SOC2. They beat the Rebels 49-46 to start league play on January 5th, but that was at South Gallia, so we'll see how that game turns out over in McDermott. Now, the Rebels do have 3 seniors that are all averaging over 15 points a game. Gabe Frazies leads them with 16.9 points. Tanner Booth, 15.5. He also averages a double-double as he's over 10 rebounds a game. And then Bryson Stanley with 15.3 points a game. So they're going to be a team that, it may be a 3-man show, but that's still pretty good 3 right there.
Is South Gallia one of the schools where their boys and girls are different divisions? Or
No, they're both Division 4.
I think, I'm not as familiar with Division 4 currently. I mean, I know we have, obviously, Webster, Notre Dame,
Fairfield,
but I don't know where South Gallia ranks right now among area teams in the Southeast District in D4. Right, they're new to our coverage area, joining the SOC2, but I feel like they could be a relatively sneaky team. I mean, you have 3 guys averaging over 15 points. Now I don't know. I mean, the next closest could be averaging 3 points, so it's hard to tell what the rest of the team.
But I mean, we
like.
covered a game where Unioto had 3 kids score over 18, and the rest of the team combined for 3, and they won.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can do it. They are right now in the RPI rankings, they are 10th.
10th? It's 7 and 7.
Yeah, 7 and
Right.
7.
What in Division 3, what's the 10 seed? Like 12 and 4 or something?
Oh, I was on Division 2, pulled on Division 2, which is...
I guarantee you it's not 500 because Zane Trace was 500 and they were like 15 or 14.
Northwest right now at 13 and 2 is the 5.
Yeah.
The 10 is South Point, who is 9 and 5, who is ridiculous.
Right.
And I'm going to keep going down. Nelsonville is the 14 at 10 and 7. They're the lowest team.
Where's the first team at 500 in Division 3?
7 and 8. Zane Trace is 15. There's nobody's actually at 500.
Right.
Southeastern is 8 and 9. They're 21st.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a big difference between the two divisions. But like you said, I think South Gallia could be one that can be a little sneaky in there. For Northwest, they need to just keep piling up wins and try to make sure they get a home game and then maybe a favorable matchup if they can get to the convo, because right now they would play Belpre, who I saw Belpre. I mean, they're only 8 and 6, but they're a pretty good team. So that would be not the best matchup to get to the convo, but I think it's definitely a winnable matchup for the Mohawks, but they still have 2 weeks to go. So 2 weeks until the boys draw, and then 1 week for the girls.
And I think the plan for us is, I think it's on the 13th. Northwest and Eastern play.
Yeah.
The second time around, I think we're going to try to get over to, I think that one's at Northwest.
Yes.
I think we're going to try to get over there for that one, but obviously still like 2.5 weeks away.
Right.
So we'll get there when we get there. But as for now, Northwest rolling in the SOC2. And another guy that we've spent a lot of time talking about him this season. He's had some crazy plays. He's been dropping, 30 plus, and in this case, 40 plus. I think 2 or 3 times it seems like this season. Nonetheless, DeAndre Berry for Portsmouth, now over 1,000 points in his career, dropping 40 points against Gallia last week.
Or no, it's 40 against Rock Hill.
Oh, 40 against Rock Hill.
He crossed the 1,000 against Gallia. But yeah, so the Trojans did not have a good week last week. They went 1 and 2. They took overtime to beat Rock Hill, but a big part of it was because DeAndre Berry had 40 points and 14 rebounds in that game. And then on Friday, he went over 1,000 points against Gallia, and then they were really competitive against North Adams in a loss.
It's like 57, 51.
Yeah. So not the best week for them, but overall, Berry, 25.3 points a game, 6.8 rebounds a game, 4.9 assists a game. He's just been, he hasn't been a fully one-man wrecking crew because Donovan Breach and Malachi Loper have been good for him as well. But a big reason why the Trojans are 9 and 5 is DeAndre Berry, and him getting to 1,000 career points, obviously is a big accomplishment for the very versatile big man.
And do you know how, exact? I'm sure I could look it up, but how many points has he had just this year?
It's a lot.
Because it seems like he's averaging 25. He's averaging 25, and they've played 14 games, so that's a little over 300.
354.
350.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he's been outstanding so far, and, he's done a good job carrying the load for them, and, they are now 9 and 5 overall, 5 and 3 in the OVC. They got 3 this week. They're at Dawson Bryant on Tuesday.
Who?
Colgrove.
There you go.
The name is Dawson Bryant. I looked up the school.
I don't care.
I know. But Dawson Bryant, Colgrove. Colgrove, Dawson Bryant. Either way. But that should be a game they can win on Tuesday. They've been a lot better on the road in the OVC than they have been at home. They beat Colgrove 87-62 the first time. Friday, they have a big one at Chesapeake, who has been rolling. They lost 61-53 to Chesapeake at home. And then Saturday, they've got Portsmouth West, which luckily for them is not at West.
Yeah.
Although West, played South Webster to a 5-point game at Webster on Saturday.
West is sort of like Colgrove, but with a little better of a record.
Mm-hmm. West right now is the 16 and would scare me. Well, okay, here's the thing. They're the 16.
And
you know who the 1 is?
And D3?
Yeah.
Minford,
who they only lost to by 2.
They didn't go to overtime?
I don't know. I just know they lost by 2.
Tight.
Yeah, lost by 2. So that's one that you can't mess around with at all. Is D3 is just ridiculous. Right now, Portsmouth is sitting in the 6th seed. They would play, a vastly improved Adena team, and that would be a interesting matchup there, is how they would do with their size against Adena's just 18 guards they play.
I would say our pre-convo coverage and pre-Southeast, our pre-district round coverage will be heavily involved with the boys Division III tournament, because I think a lot of those sectional finals and sectional semifinals are going to be really entertaining games that you may not get in other years. It might be a 20 or 30 point game. You're going to have some, because that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But for the most part, when you start getting into those middle seeds, I think we're going to have a lot of competitive games between a lot of these teams we've seen this year, like Portsmouth and Adena.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. Speaking of Adena, a league mate of theirs, Westfall, 3-0 on the week for them, and a big reason, Brian Craig, a freshman 20 in the upset win over Zane Trace.
Yeah, and he really carried them late in that game. I think he had their last 8 points in regulation. He only had 1 in overtime. He made 1 free throw in overtime, but at the end of regulation, he really took the game over for them. They were down, or they were up for most of the game. He helped get the lead out to 7. Then Zane Trace went on an 11-0 run, and Craig then had 2 ridiculous steals and layups in the last 30 seconds. I think it was the last 35 seconds, actually, to tie the game. And then they eventually force overtime, and they win in overtime. And, Craig, 20 points. I believe that's a career high for him. It's just, it was a win that they needed to stay in the SVC race, and they were able to get it largely in part to the freshmen. They are now 11-5 on the season, with the 3-0 week. They had a pretty easy win over Southeastern, and then they went to overtime, back-to-back games. The surprising one was the double overtime at Paint Valley. But
I was a little bit surprised to see you beat Zane Trace in overtime one night, and then was it the next night?
2 nights later.
2 nights later, you're in an overtime match with Paint Valley, who, record-wise, hasn't been quite as good as they've been the past couple of years. But, that's to be expected when, over the last 2 years, you've graduated some of the guys they've graduated.
Yeah, so, and also for Paint Valley, we kind of talked about it a little bit in the preseason, how they had 2 really good scorers in Carson Free and Braylon Robertson, and Robertson went off that night. He had 29, including, I believe it was 15 in overtime. No, it was 13 of their 15 points in overtime that Robertson scored. So they had to survive and kind of advance on the road there. Another big piece for the Mustangs has been Brody Clark. He leads the SVC with 20.4 points a game. He now leads in threes made with 41. He's shooting 39% from threes. He's up in the 80s from the free throw line. He's a really good scorer. And then Jeremiah Layton, who's came on lately, he had 13 in that game against St. Trace, and I know he had double figures against Paint Valley as well. He's averaging 7.8 points a game, shooting 62.4% from the field on the season for the Mustangs. The big man has really soft hands and finishes well around the basket. So for them to continue on, they need him to be to play well along with Clark and Craig.
Yeah, and obviously now the thing for Westfall is you're going to need somebody else to step up because you don't have Ray anymore.
Right.
He has been a guy for them all season long, and you lose him at the halfway mark, and you get a guy like Craig, or Clark and Ray. No, Ray's only a sophomore. Clark is a senior. So hopefully Craig comes back. Hopefully you can get him to stay at Westfall because nowadays it's hard to tell. But with all the schools, players moving around.
Right.
So hopefully he can stay there, and you can build something around Joe. You're going to get Craig as a sophomore next year, and you're going to have Ray as a junior, and you might bring in a piece or two.
Well, and the thing I'll say is they also, I don't know how much this equates to the varsity level, but right now they're tied for first in the JV league in the SVC. So they've got some kids that can play that are behind a bunch of seniors right now. Yeah. So maybe you don't see that big of a drop off. They're going to have to replace the 20 points a game with Brody Clark, but you're going to have 18 points a game and Joe Ray coming back. And then, with a Brian Craig, and then you kind of fill in some pieces of some other kids that can maybe fill in parts of that. It's kind of like in Moneyball, where you're not trying to replace it all at once. You're trying to
build them. In the congregate.
Yes. Yeah.
So you lose Clark, who averaged 20. You just got to bring in 3 guys that average about 7.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. And that's how you do it. And really that is how it is. I mean, because you got to find the points somehow. And if it's not one guy, then it's got to be multiple. So.
Right. All right, let's talk about some game reviews. We're going to talk about both games we were at last week, because we were pretty fortunate last week. We've had a couple rough patches the last few weeks for streaming, but we had 2 great games this week, both league games. We'll start with Unioto Zane Trace, their second meeting of the season. Unioto wins 59-58, game pretty much right down to the wire.
Yeah, it was a game where, if the people that like the Elam ending would hate to watch that game.
Elam?
Yeah.
Movie?
No, it's from the basketball tournament in the summer, where you play to a set score.
Played at 21?
No.
You mean the Big 3 tournament?
No, not the Big 3. The basketball tournament.
Oh,
the TBT.
the basketball tournament. Yeah. What is that? It's like after the first half, it's plus 20 on the higher team score.
No, it's with 4 minutes left, you go to plus 8.
For the highest team score.
Yeah. And then you're just like, say, like in that game, Zane Trace had to score 8 more points, and then Unioto would have had to score, I think it would have been 11 at that point, something like that. So, but it makes it to where the fouls aren't into equation. But in this one, fouls were taken into equation. Yeah. Zane Trace did not shoot the ball very well at the free throw line late. Unioto did. They got a surprising 2 for 2 out of Ashton Crace, which was huge because they were down 3 at the time, cut it to 2. Then I believe Gerald went to the line, made 2. Blake Fitch knocks down a jump shot after a Zane Trace turnover. Blake Fitch goes down and hits a very tough turnaround jumper. But in our vantage point, it looked very tough. But if you watch it from the huddle cam on the other side, it looked it looked a little more like what he normally shoots, but it still was not the easiest shot. Scores it with 8 seconds left after a Unioto timeout. Technically, it was given. Unioto was able to get a defensive stop and win the game 59-58. So it was a really exciting game. Unioto extended the game by fouling and were able to escape at home with a win. A big thing in that was Zeke Schoblock went down with an injury right before halftime for Unioto. He did not come back in the second half. Didn't play against Adena on Saturday. So I mean, hopefully he can make it back. I'm not sure if he will, but it's one of those, he's right around 15 points a game and shooting 46% from 3. So he's a big piece for Unioto. So for them to be able to win that game without him and then to beat Adena without him is really a impressive feat by Unioto. So a lot of it was behind Blake Fitch. He was outstanding both games, obviously with the game winner against Zane Trace, but also he had 20 against Adena on Saturday. Blake Hoops had a huge game on Tuesday against Zane Trace. He had 16 in that one. Saturday he had 6, but did a lot of little things. And KB Perkins stepped up big for them. Like I mentioned with Ashton Crace, he had a nice game. I believe he averaged 2 points and 10 rebounds in the 2 games last week. So not doing a lot of scoring, but doing it on the glass. Then you've got like a Jordan Perkins, Newton Hoops, Caden Cutright hit a big shot for him against Adena. So they've got guys that can do it. They've just, got to fill in some new roles as they go on. That game against Saturday, you can read about it on sosaohio.com. And then they play at McLean on Tuesday, and they have Southeastern on Friday at home. For Zane Trace, it was a rough week. Yeah. They got Landon Gerald back. He had 23 points and was awesome in that game against Unioto. Brock Gerald shot the absolute lights out of the ball. I believe he was 4 for 5 from 3 in that game. On Thursday, they went to Westfall, lost in overtime, like we mentioned with Craig making those 2 plays to force overtime. In that game, Brock Gerald was 4 for 6 from 3. So, I mean, he's starting to really get going. Landon Robinson had a really good game on Saturday when they beat Payton in overtime. So they played 3 games this week.
It's not getting any easier this coming week.
Yeah. So
you got to go to Courthouse, and then you got to host Adena, who,
has been playing really well.
Yeah.
That game against Unioto, they just couldn't get over the hump. Like they were down. They got down. I think it was 8-0 early, and never.
Well, they cut it down to 2 or 3.
Cut it down to 2 a couple times, and just they couldn't get a stop or whatever. But because I think if they got a stop, they had a 3 rattle out at one point. That if that goes in, maybe they win that game. But that's an Adena team that's still playing for their SVC life. Unioto has a half game lead over multiple teams in the league, but they still have to go to Westfall where they never play well. They have to go to Payton. They play 3 teams that are near the bottom of the league with Southeastern, Paint Valley, and Huntington, but still they got to go on the road to 2 of those. So, for Adena, they just got win and just hope, whatever. And then Zane Trace, you got to win out.
Well, and that's the thing that sucks for Zane Trace is, last Monday, they're still thinking gold ball, and now you're in second place in the league. So, and you really, at this point, you don't control your own destiny. You just got to win the games you can win. Right now, Courthouse first. I think that's Tuesday night. Maybe.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah, that you're just. I don't really.
The one thing I'll say.
The
one thing I'll say with Courthouse, they've just not played very many games. So maybe they're cold, but it's a good team. It's not the best matchup, but Gunnar McCall is playing really well for Zane Trace right now. So I think.
No, outside of the free throw trouble at the end of the Unioto game, I thought he played really well.
Yeah. And that was just more confidence.
Well, because he started off 4 for 4 from the stripe, and then I think he finished 1 for 6 or 2 for 6 or something.
Yeah, so just good free throw shooters, just confidence. And the Payton game almost ended in a disaster because they're up 3 late, and they fouled Brent McGuire on a 3, hits all 3 free throws, forces overtime. So that could have been. They're up. Yeah. I think they're up 4 with 15 seconds left in that game. Payton hits a 3 to cut it to 1. They make 2 free throws, and then McGuire hits all 3 free throws, and it goes to overtime. But they end up holding on in that. But yeah, it's a St. Trace team that they got to figure some things out quick. They're 0-6 in the non-league. I still like the makeup of their team. I know they're without Carter Langley. I think if he comes back this season, that will help them a good bit because that will just give them that extra. Person.
Because Division III boys, are they going to play it? Are there really going to be any sectional semifinals, or is it just going to be sectional final then district final?
There will be some sectional semi.
Would it be the 20+ seeds playing in that?
Yeah.
So I feel bad for whatever team draws Zane Trace for a home sectional final because that is going to suck. Because right now, who would it be? 15.
Right now, 15? It would be North Adams.
Yeah.
Which I think North Adams is better, but at the same time, it's
Zane Trace is not your typical 15 seed.
And think about North Adams' team though; they don't have a big, so it's a team that Zane Trace matches
the point guard.
Right,
their biggest guy.
Yeah, Zane Trace matches up really well with North Adams in that game, and that's why they took Wheelersburg to overtime. Who's the 3 seed? So, this is It's a Zane Trace team that, if they can figure things out, is very scary because you're going to always have one of the top 2, maybe 1 player on the court, and Landon Jarrell. Landon Robinson's very good. Brock Jarrell is, if he gets his feet set, is an absolutely knockdown 3-point shooter. Then McCall is getting better. It's just they're a team that they figure it out. They're going to be scary.
Speaking of North Adams, Green Devils now the last remaining undefeated team in the SHAC, a 59-50 win over Fairfield on Friday, snapping a 39 consecutive regular season game winning streak for the Lions. And I think it was the first time in 5 meetings that North Adams had beat Fairfield, so a big win for the Green Devils on Friday.
Yeah, that was an exciting game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just North Adams gets out to a 10-point lead after the first quarter, and seemed like they were going to coast. And they get up 16 in the third, and then all of a sudden,
very up and down game for sure.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's a 2-point game. It was an extended run for Fairfield because it wasn't a 14-0 run. It was like, I want to say it was like a 20-6 run late in the third, going into the fourth. They got it down to 2, but then like Jace Rothwell would just make a play on the other end, and that was, the big thing was Branson Copus only took 4 shots. He didn't take a shot in the second half, and they still were able to win that game by 9. Because how good Jace Rothwell was. I think I had him for 26 in the game.
Yeah, his scoring, I think you had him for 26. The scoreboard said 24, and Derek had him for like 27 or something. It was very...
It was all over the place, but like when I went back and counted, like I was right because I'm awesome.
Yeah,
but
I figured.
Yeah, who knows? Whatever. But this is one thing I'll say about North Adams. A lot of them look alike, so maybe some of his points got credited somewhere else. But yeah, Rothwell was really good in that game. So he made baskets whenever they needed. He was 10 for 10 at the free throw line, all in the second half. There was a little bit of controversy late, but we talked about it on the way home. It was like, it felt like it was a 8 to 10 point game the whole game. Fairfield made their big run to cut it to 2, but overall it felt like the final score is about what was indicative of what the game was. Yeah. But Fairfield, give them credit. They've absolutely battled back in that. And I don't think they had a shot to take the lead. I think they had a shot to tie. It didn't get to fall, and then Rothwell scored a couple times. Breeson Schweikert was awesome for North Adams as well. They did it without Carson Osborne scoring, which is a big step for them.
He was around 9-ish.
Yeah, right around 9. But who was the big one? 3 points a game.
Oh, Hessler had 6.
Yeah, Hessler was 6 points, 3 for 3 from the field. He had a huge putback.
Yeah.
And, it was a very badly missed 3 from the corner, and he read it perfect and gets a putback, and I think that put him up 6 at the time, and it was like, this might be it. But, yeah, so he played really well. And, that's the thing with North Adams is they've been rolling since that game we had when they played Minford. Mm-hmm. You've got one of the best ball handlers and point guards in the area. You've got a kid like Rothwell that can go off at any time. That was a career high for him. And then you've got different guys that can really shoot it. Or, there's going to be a game coming up where, North Adams plays Eastern Brown on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Carson Osborne with like 20 in that game.
I was going to say, you got Schweiker, they can shoot it. And I think you said Osborne. It was either Osborne and Young or Osborne and Rogers were both at like 49%.
It was Young and Rogers.
Oh, Young
and Rogers didn't play.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, so like sometimes you just got to limit the rotation, or maybe something else was going on. But yeah, they were able to play with just 6, and they were able to get the win. I thought they were the better team on Saturday, or Friday, so it was good that they got it. If you want to check that game out, check it out on our YouTube page. Presented by Ohio Health. Is it? I know we're presented by McDonald's. Overtime is.
I guess the YouTube is.
Whatever. I think it says it on there. But, yeah, the game's on there from last week. You could also see Fairfield's Larkin friend go absolutely off, especially late. He was well over 20 points. He had a good all-around game. He didn't get the assists that he normally does, but, outside of Trey House, they didn't really score the ball. And, Logan McIntosh was in foul trouble in the first half. He got going a little bit in the second half, but you could tell he wasn't really ever comfortable. The big one for me is Gabe Fouch has got
I don't think he took a shot.
He didn't take a shot. And he was averaging right around 9 a game. So for Fairfield to be good, they got to have the 4 guys that can all give you between 9 and 15 a game. And they need Fouch to get going. And, he's either wasn't comfortable or something on Friday night, but just he's had some big games this year.
Well, that's what surprised me is because you're telling me over at Eastern, their Coach Williams is trying to draw something up here.
And he wanted the ball.
And he's the one that steps up and says, put it in my hands. And then, next week you got a game against the only other undefeated team in the SHAC. And it's not like we're saying he didn't want to shoot.
Right.
Nothing was open.
But he didn't force anything, didn't push it to try to get it. So,
I don't know. And obviously Friend finished with 20, but I just feel like early on, down the stretch, he got like really aggressive
Yeah.
and like pushed it down the lane. And I mean, he was getting it to go off the glass underneath, but I don't know. It just seemed like really early, and they got down 13-2. It just seemed like they were just on autopilot, and they weren't really. It's not that
maybe
they
were
weren't
tight.
It's not that they weren't trying to force anything, but I don't know. They just had a very stale looking offense to start. But in like, I don't know if they would have played the entire game how they played about the last 4 minutes, I think that would have been a lot different. I think it would have been a lot closer than 9 points, because it seemed like they didn't really start pushing the tempo until they're like, oh, like we gotta go. Like we're down 10 points and there's 3 minutes left. Now we gotta go. So I don't know. I mean, for Fairfield, I think the toughest game. Oh no, they're on the other side. I think the toughest game on their schedule is Miami Trace for the rest of the season. So I mean, they're still going to finish, a top.
Probably going to win
seed.
20 games.
Yeah, they're probably going to be a top 1 or top 2 seed in Division 4. Them or Webster, I would assume.
I think they're going to be the 2, because Webster's schedule's better, like in strength. So you mentioned that like they're not gonna have Coach Williams this week, because he's got to set the 2 games, but they're
at Hillsborough.
Who's very up and down, but they've got 2 really good guards. So I mean that could be an interesting game. And then they've got Fayetteville on Friday, which good for them is at home, because it seems like playing at Fayetteville's terrible.
Well, I was going to say, because North Adams only got them by 7 and held Copus to 5. And, I mean, if Fairfield plays how they did against North Adams and you hold Friend to 10 or less, I mean, that could be trouble, unless somebody like House or McIntosh or Fouch gets going. I think you said Miller, percentage-wise, was the best three-point shooter.
Yeah, so. Miller didn't have a bad game. He hit a big 3 for him. House had a couple big 3s for him. So, I still like the makeup of the Fairfield team, and maybe it's one of those things where you get the loss out of the way, because it
was bound to happen.
Yeah, because it is a lot of pressure to just keep that streak going, because 39 straight regular season wins is pretty big, pretty important, or pretty impressive. I would think if it's not a school record, it's got to be close.
Pretty close.
Yeah,
I would assume so.
Because I know. I won't say it because it'd be a whole marine, but I know Peebles in another school,
Unioto, tied at 69.
No, it's 55 regular 65?
season. Oh, regular season.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of something else.
Yeah, you're thinking of league wins. Yeah. So nice job by North Adams, and then on Saturday they went back and beat Portsmouth on the road, 57-51. So I mean they immediately got challenged again, and are able to escape that one, and so they moved to is it 12-3 and 8-0? Yeah. So they are looking right now. They're a number 2 seed in the Division 3. We'll see where that kind of plays out as other teams are playing. It's different because like they play at Ripley. That's going to not help them because.
I'm not sure.
Ripley's pretty low on the win percentage, and then they play Peebles, so where Wheelersburg, maybe they play better teams, and so that could bump them up. So I mean,
they're gonna play Minford once,
but I don't know if that's before the
draw,
yeah,
it's the 9th.
Yeah, so the game's on the 9th. So next Friday is the last games
So that would work. That would be their last game they get on the draw. Would be that game.
Yeah. So. Right now, they are almost 2.5 points on the RPI above Wheelersburg, and they're not that far from Minford. So if Minford, let's say, loses to South Webster,
Wheelersburg.
Yeah, well, I mean, just for this week, it could could jump them this week, but yeah, and then you've got like a Fairland, Northwest, Chesapeake, Eastern, kind of waiting in the weeds. So it should be pretty interesting down the stretch here.
Let's break down some conferences. We'll start with the OVC, probably the most competitive conference, boys or girls, we have this season. It seems like there's about 5 teams competing for the 1 spot right now.
Yeah, and you've got the 5 teams competing for the 1 spot, and then you had the team that's in 6th place just beat one of those teams. Yeah. So, and then another team that's tied for 6th. Well, actually, they're in 7th because they played one more league game. took one of those teams to overtime. So I mean, it's a very good league, and I'm not even sure Rock Hill's bad. They just haven't. They've won one league game.
They beat Gallia, didn't they? Who just beat Portsmouth?
Yeah. So right now, Chesapeake has a half game lead over the rest of the cluster in the OVC. They are 7-2. They started off 0-2 in the OVC. They won 7 straight OVC games. They won 9 of their last 10. Only loss was over at North Adams in the Coach Young Classic. Maybe they weren't used to playing at like 10 o'clock. Yeah. So, they've played very well. This week they've got Gallia Academy on Tuesday, who just beat Portsmouth, and then they've got a big one with Portsmouth on Friday, who they did beat the first time. Then we got a 3-way tie. Fairland, Ironton, South Point, all at 6-2. Fairland and Ironton play on Tuesday. Fairland plays at South Point on Friday. So Fairland with the toughest week out of there, as Ironton and South Point each play Rock Hill.
Same schedule Chesapeake just played last week, and Chesapeake got out unscathed.
Yeah, so
we'll see
it's
what Fairland does.
Yeah, if Fairland can get out of that unscathed, I think they've got a nice chance to possibly finish atop. But you've got all these teams have to play each other, and then you've got Portsmouth, who started off the season 6-0. They're 3-5 since then. They are at Colgrove on Tuesday, and then at Chesapeake on Friday. I think the game at Chesapeake is going to be for their OVC lives. So if they can get a win there, then we're going to talk about this more next week on how congested it is then as well.
Yeah, so we'll move on. We're just going to quickly go through these and just sort of highlight, who's at the top and
some of the big matchups
in the hunt.
Yeah.
I don't know what other phrase. Seems like in the hunt is just universally. I think
sniffing around.
Yeah, there was some.
That was it.
Is that what it was? Because
Yeah.
I remember, like on one of the football broadcasts, they like changed the name because they didn't want to just keep it the same. So we'll talk.
I think it was like the Bears were like sniffing around at like 4-7 or something. It was like, technically they weren't out.
It's
but
like below being in the hunt.
Yeah.
You're just sniffing around. But for the SOC 3, it's the 3 teams we've been talking about atop of the league or top of the conference all season. It's Wheelersburg, Minford, and South Webster. 2 of those teams being Minford and Webster playing this week for the second time. Wheelersburg and Webster playing, I think it was last week or the week before.
Wheelersburg and Webster played on Friday
of last week.
Yes.
Right, so big win for Webster in that one.
Yeah, they won that game in overtime, and that keeps them in the hunt. Yeah, they aren't sniffing around. They're in the hunt.
Wait, so last Friday, so like 3 days ago Friday they played?
Yeah, same night we were at
Fairfield,
yeah. And it was, it was at Wheelersburg. They take them to overtime. They end up winning it in overtime by 7. So Webster at 5-2 in the SOC 3, 14-2 overall. They don't have it fully locked down, the 1 seed in Division 4, but a lot would have to happen for them to not get it. And they don't have that much time left, as they only have the 1 game this week, and it's versus Minford on Friday. Once again, if you want to go back and rewatch that game, it's on our YouTube channel. And it ended up being a 3-point game, but really wasn't that tight.
6, 7.
Yeah. They hit some shots late, and, they made a shot with no time left also. So, but playing at home, they've been playing really well. I still think it's not the best matchup for Minford, just size-wise, because Eli Roberts is awesome. Obviously, Bennett Kaiser is awesome, too, for...
And Shoemaker's good as well. I mean,
Yeah.
seems like...
I think Montgomery's the difference between the 2 teams, but at the same time, it's a kind of a weird matchup.
Well, I mean, usually it seems like Kaiser is on the opposing big guy, and then Shoemaker is sort of, whoever their 4 is. But, yeah, I mean, when you have a player like Montgomery that can go inside out like he can, I mean, we haven't seen him really connect on any of the deep threes he's taken, but, I mean, he has confidence to let it go from there. I mean, if you have confidence to let it go from there, I mean, you've seen it go in before.
Right, and there's a reason he's got like 1,300 points right now.
So, I mean, just take that Webster game, for example. I mean, I think he took probably 3 shots from, seemed like 23, 24 feet. I mean, if he hits half of those, I mean, those are difference makers, because then you got to step out on him, and that just makes it that much easier.
And then
to
you can't guard him.
Yeah.
So Minford, they're only 4-1 in the SOC 3. They had their Waverly game get pushed back, obviously for unforeseen circumstances there. So they'll be back. They are at Webster on Friday. They are 11-2 overall. They got a big one on Tuesday. They got Miami Trace at home on Tuesday.
Who does? Miami or Minford?
Yep. Yeah, so
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so that should be a good game. And then you've got Wheelersburg, who is 5-2 or 5-1, 12-4 overall. They have Waverly at home on Friday, so still not the easiest week because Waverly.
We haven't talked about them as much recently.
No, but they were only down. They were down one late against Miami Trace. Miami Trace ends up pulling away. I think winning by that game by 11. And, they're playing 4 freshmen a lot of times. So.
I was going to say, Waverly, although they're led by Nyber, still one of the more up-and-coming teams in our area. So, look for Waverly, next year, the year after.
Yeah.
And then you never know. You might get somebody that transfers in or whatever. Right.
We'll like Waverly and Wheelersburg, that could be a big one, next year. How good is the SOC3 going to be next year? Because, these 3 that we're talking about still have a bunch of guys coming back. And then Waverly's just going to get better.
Well, obviously the problem for Minford will be you're going to lose Montgomery, but you're going to get Kaiser and Shoemaker. Oh, Montgomery's a junior?
Yeah.
I thought he was a senior because Shoemaker's a junior.
Yeah, they're all
Kaiser's
juniors.
A junior.
Yeah.
I thought Montgomery was a senior.
No, they're...
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Never mind.
Yeah, Wheelsburg will lose Lattimore.
So is Pika and Glockner the only seniors? What's Rhodes?
No, Glockner's a junior. Rhodes and Pika are seniors.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Your class levels are all messed up.
Yeah, we cover a lot of teams.
Oh,
yeah,
it's amazing that you could just tell me a name or tell me a team and I could tell you a player or two.
Right.
We haven't even covered Chesapeake, and just from doing the show, I could tell you Casey and
Maynard.
God, who's the kid is Maynard the player of the week for OVC? Spoiler if that doesn't release.
Yeah, I would think it would release because you've seen the pictures of it. So
well, they put it on the website, but who knows when they'll get posted on social media.
Because they put out a lot of stuff on social media today. So, yeah, and then Webster's going to lose Summer, but, and then Timothy will head back overseas. But, they still with Roberts, and then the guards are all back.
Yeah, I never even, do you think, where was Timothy from? Spain?
I thought he was from England, but apparently he's from Scotland.
Scotland?
Yeah.
Do you think anybody from Scotland watched the stream on?
I doubt it.
On the other day,
maybe.
You never know.
Yeah, he's a nice player. So it's been a nice pickup for them, and I think they've got I think all 3 of these teams have a chance to win a district title. Which, can't necessarily say.
I think if Webster was in Division 3, they would still have a pretty reasonable chance. They beat Wheelersburg, who we think will win a district title.
Yeah.
So you throw them in D4, it's like they're probably going to win a district title. They could end up playing a team like South Gallia, who what will we say? South Gallia was like a what were they? A six or seven seed.
Yeah.
You could end up playing a team in a district final that's right around 500.
Yeah.
We're looking to get Webster and Fairfield or any of those Notre Dame in the regional tournament, but in terms of district play,
right now the 4 was Notre Dame, so that could be a district championship game.
Oh, wasn't Fed Hawk in the top 4?
Yeah, Fed Hawk's 3, and they just beat Benton County on Saturday. They just got the Cottrell kid back, so they've got 2,000 point scorers. So I really want to, I know Fairfield beat Fed Hawk, but I want to see that as a district final, especially on the big floor. That'd be a really fun matchup there. So, yeah, and so moving on from the SOC3, actually, no, backtrack, don't move on. All 3 of these teams have to play West again. Yeah. Now, I know, Wheelersburg and Minford won at West, and Webster still has to go to West. But, West appears to be miserable to play against. They beat a really good Jackson team. Yeah, it's just, yeah. So, now moving on. Yeah. And then Valley's got Jace Copley.
Yeah.
Who might put up a 40 anytime. So, yeah. So, now moving on to the SVC. This one will be a quick one because we kind of already talked about it. But Unioto has a half-game lead. They're 7-1 in the SVC. They got Southeastern this Friday. Westfall 7-2. They're at Huntington on Friday. And then Zane Trace at 7-2. They have Adena at home, that's a must win for both teams. Adena 6-3, still sniffing around. They've got a little bit of a chance. And then, if we didn't talk about a league this week, we'll probably talk about it next week because, we got some big games coming up, including a big one in the FAC where we can pretty much just say what happens in the league after that game happens on Saturday. So it should be going to be a big week.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those games coming up this week. We have 4 on tap. The first one, we sort of already mentioned it when previewing, or I should say when breaking down the OVC, but Ironton at Fairland, both teams with 10 wins, 4 losses, 6-2 in the OVC, the exact same records. Ironton winning the first time around. Now the second meeting is in Proctorville. So,
yeah, the first meeting, 65-60 win for Ironton. Back on December 19th, Braden Schreck, who just went over 1,000 points within the last couple of weeks, had 25 points in that game. Sean Terry 16, Bailey Thacker with 12. Schreck is now up to 18 points a game. I mentioned the 1,000 points. Sean Terry, 13.2 points a game. He just does so many little things and has like 40 offers for football. Yeah. Ashton Lane is a freshman who's been really good for him. 8.3 points, 6 rebounds. And Bailey Thacker averaging 7.4 points, 7.7 rebounds. I think these teams match up really well, like player for player. I think, with Brody Buchanan, Chase Allen, the guards, maybe a slight advantage for Fairland because, if you're going to throw Will Davis on Braden Schreck as more of a 3 area, it's going to be a decent matchup there. Noah Markham and Keegan Smith match up pretty well with Lane and Thacker. So I just think, man, this is going to be a really fun game down in Proctorville. I think just the start of a lot of really fun games coming
this week. Yeah. Proctorville.
Yeah. Proctorville plays basketball.
Well, this won't be this all next Monday.
Yeah, next Monday. But yeah, so there's some really big games, and this is the first one. So, like we mentioned, Fairland's they've got to win. Maybe not win out. I think you said they could. There's probably gonna have 3 losses in the OVC. Is probably gonna win it.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if that happened now.
Yeah, so they've got Ironton on Tuesday, at South Point on Friday. They got to win on Tuesday. Because, if you lose on the road, it sucks. But at the same time, it's on the road. And you only beat them by 2 the first time, where you did a really good job on Lovely. But, this matchup, I think, is almost a must-win for Fairland if they want to win the league. And once again, going to go back to the RPI. These teams are going to be, right in the thick of it through that, 4 through 8 area. Right now, Ironton's 9th, Fairland's 4th.
Man.
Well, Ironton's schedule's not been
Fairland,
good in the non-league.
Did Fairland beat North Adams?
Yes.
So that's
probably
a big win.
Yeah, so Fairland's non-league schedule's been really difficult. So I'll go over it real quick. So, you had North Adams, Unioto. North Adams 12-3, Unioto's 11-5, 10-5.
10-5.
Then you had Lindsley, who they lost to, who just going to pull up real quick because I don't know how many losses they even have. And of course, this is when Max Preps decides to take a nap. They're 12-0. So, they lost to a team that's 12-0. And, they beat Portsmouth West. They really beat Portsmouth West. That's the only really bad loss for West all year, is 78-44. So they lost to who was it? They lost to South Webster. They haven't played bad teams. Beat Johnstown Northridge. I didn't even know they played Johnstown Northridge. Beat them by 3. So they've played a really tough schedule. And, they still, to go on the schedule, they still have at Eastern, a game we may do, and then Wheelersburg on the 20th. So, there's no joke for Fairland this year on their non-league schedule. And that's what's going to get them a higher seed. But, this will be a big one.
Yeah. No, it'll be one that, like I've said it 100 times, anytime you put any of those 5 teams against each other, it's high stakes, and it's really hard to tell what's going to happen. I mean, Portsmouth beat Ironton by 30. South Point beat Portsmouth by like 35. I think Ironton beat South Point, and even if they didn't, I mean, it's still just
it's wild.
And here comes Chesapeake, seemingly
just winning everything.
Nowhere. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm excited for the OVC league games to just be over, so I can just look and see what happened because it's impossible to predict.
Well, and then the other thing to me is the OVC's coaches are really good. Yeah. I mean, it's a really well coached league, a lot of talent, just really good basketball in the OVC. And you've had multiple guys who have been state coaches of the year. Coach Speed's gone to the Final Four. Coach Ader, I believe, has gotten to the Elite Eight a couple of times. Now he's at Chesapeake, and then I know Coach Barnes won a lot of games at South Point too. So it's then Coach Lysitz went to the Final Four and the Elite Eight. So Colgrove went to the Elite Eight a couple years ago. So it's a loaded league.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Friday. A couple of games coming up towards the end of the week. The first one, a rematch between Minford and South Webster. Minford taking their first meeting. In between the two meetings, South Webster taking down Wheelersburg, who did beat Minford at home. So I think maybe this one is appearing to. I think people. What'd you just do?
Cracked my back.
Oh, I think looking at this game from the outside, a lot of people might think this is going to be a little bit closer than you may have before the Wheelersburg game. Because, I'll be honest, I did not think Webster was going to beat Wheelersburg.
I didn't either.
So this is
especially at Wheelersburg.
Yeah. So this is like a whole new. It's like a whole new game now.
Well, when Coach Pearson's been there, they have not lost. So I mean, there's.
Oh, is he undefeated?
Yeah.
Both of their losses, he was not there.
Yeah.
Because Minford and then.
Yeah, of course he wasn't there for the two best teams they've played.
Yeah.
But they beat one of those teams the second time. So, I mean, obviously great coach. I mean, you don't get to nearly 800 wins by not being a great coach. So, South Webster is playing really well right now. Minford, I think when you've got the point guard you do, they've got the three guys, the three-headed monster really with, Shoemaker and Kaiser and Montgomery. But, Rhodes played really well down at Wheelersburg and seems like he's getting going after, not really playing last year. And then Pika.
Rhodes didn't play last year? Know that.
And then Pika is... he came off the bench for him last year, but he's still playing into a new role this year, and it seems like he's adjusting pretty well to that. So I think they're, starting to get moving a little bit. They've got to get a little bit out of the bench with, Glockner has to, be a little more aggressive on the offensive end, I think. But I mean, that's also, maybe that's not part of the game plan, and maybe he's just playing into that. But I think, it'd be nice for them to get that fourth scorer every game. And, down at Wheelersburg, it was Rhodes. We saw Pika do it against South Point.
Yep.
Or South Webster.
Webster.
And, they need that to get going. Now for South Webster, you've got Eli Roberts scoring over 20 points a game, just kind of doing everything. I think Summer was around 14 points a game last I saw. Timothy's right around 10 points a game. They've got to find a fourth scorer in the guards, and it seems like Hunter Bernard's starting to get a little more playing time. Yeah. It sounds like he played really well down the stretch at Wheelersburg. We were both impressed with him in that game against Minford, so I think he could be the difference maker in this game. Only a sophomore has earned his playing time throughout the year, so I think this is a really big game in the area. On our schedule, Brock this is one of the two games that he might be at. So if he's not there, I'll probably be at this one, but we'll kind of see if.
Well, I know we were going to be at if Brock does go.
Yeah.
We're going to go talk about this next game.
And that would be the one I'd be at if not, yeah.
Adena at Zane Trace, second meeting between the two. Pioneers getting the win in Frankfurt the first time around with Gerald only playing two and a half-ish quarters. But, I mean, his impact, what he finished with 18 in that span. I mean, like I've said it a bunch, like that probably would have been his best game of the year if he finished, but obviously got hurt. He's back now, so unfortunately for Adena, one of the few teams that are going to have to play Gerald twice because some teams got lucky the first time around. Now, Zane Trace played very well without Gerald. I mean, obviously they didn't lose a league game in that span. And they played a lot of tough non-league games, capping it off with a game against Wheelersburg, because I don't think Gerald played in that one.
That was the last one he was out.
Because I think we said the first game he was going to be back. He was going to be back.
It was going to be Westfall.
Oh, Westfall.
And then it got pushed back because of the snow.
Yeah. So I mean, they're going to have Gerald back. It's at Zane Trace. I think this is going to be a good chance for the Pioneers to get a good win. Right, that they've lost 3 of their last 4. They got a bounce back win against Payton, although that was probably a little closer than Coach Keller would have liked it to be. I mean, the loss to Unioto, it's whatever. I think the loss to Westfall stings a little. I mean, the loss to Unioto stings just because it's a loss to Unioto.
Yeah.
But like, they're a good team in the league. The loss to Westfall didn't sound like it was the most. I mean, no loss is pleasant, but it didn't sound like it was the most pleasant loss they've had. So, I mean, this is a chance to beat a good team. I mean, they're above 500. They're 11-6, winning record in the league. Yeah, I've said it a bunch. Zane Trace is probably the best team in the district, no matter the division that's under 500 currently. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think this is going to be this is a find out who you really are game, because it not only is it a league member, and not only is it a league game, it's like a fellow Division III opponent. And I would assume right now Adena is probably above.
Yes, Adena right now is
a little bit.
11.
And ZT is 15.
15. ZT can, with a win, ZT would jump Nelsonville. Adena, I don't know if they have much movement. I think they're almost locked into that spot because South Point is a good bit above them. Belpre's a decent amount below them. So, I mean, Adena maybe could drop to 13. I think the most St. Trace could jump to this week is, well, if they beat Courthouse. Yeah. If they beat Courthouse on Tuesday, then they're going to jump.
And that's sort of the problem is, like, I don't know. I mean, you're going to play a good team. That'll get you ready to go. I mean, they've played a good team in Unioto, a team in Westfall that's above 500. I mean, obviously,
Payton's not a bad team. They're just inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, they're under 500, but I mean, they beat Hillsborough, who I think is still technically above 500.
They're 8-8.
They're 8-8, so I mean, they're right there with St. Trace, different divisions, but I mean, really close to 500. So once again, for the Pioneers, tough one on Tuesday, but on Friday, I mean, a chance to play a team that's in the same division as you, the same conference as you, and a chance to get a bounce back win in the league. And that's not even mentioning the fact that if they still want a chance to potentially get a share of the league, this is a must win.
Yeah, it's a must win for St. Trace. I mean, and I think for Adena it is too, because your 3 league losses, 2 to Unioto, 1 to St. Trace, and you gotta knock one of these teams off. If you want to be where you want to be, and really, I feel like if they're in that 11 spot, I don't hate that as a matchup for them to get out of the sectional and maybe get to the district. But if you drop any more, I think that's where it's a little tougher at the top. But I mean, it's, they're a good team. I like their makeup. They are very guard heavy. Going to be a lot of good guards on the court in this game. I think Lucas King had a really nice game against Unioto. He didn't really get going from the outside until the second half, but man, when he did, felt like everything he shot was going to go in. He ended up with 17 points and at least 8 rebounds. There's a couple down at the far end that I may have missed because by the time I got there were not seats in the crowd, and so I just sat along the wall. And sometimes you miss some of those, so just wait to see what the stats get put up as. But he's been really nice as a sophomore, scoring well over 12 points a game for them. Jody Ader is at right around 14 a game. He only shot 4 times against Unioto. He shot a good number of free throws, so he was getting fouled on those, but he's got to get some more shots. Easton Hennis did not shoot the ball very well against Unioto, but played good defense. But if he gets scoring, that's when they're really dangerous, because you got Bryson Smith. Caden Lee's played a lot better since Christmas, and it's a team that can be dangerous. Now for Zane Trace, we've talked about him throughout. I think they're going to have the best player on the court in this game in Gerald, but it's how are they going to do on the glass against like a Lucas King who rebounds at a super high level. He's listed at 6'3", but I would say his wingspan's probably about 6'7", 6'8". Like he's got some super long arms, good left-handed shooter. And, I think this is it's kind of a weird matchup. Adena got off to an 11-0 start at home against St. Trace. St. Trace ended up tying it at the end of the first quarter, 13-13, and then it was kind of all St. Trace after that. But, I think this is Adena's played better since then. Mm-hmm. I think this is a big game.
No, and as you said, if Brock makes the trip down to Webster, you'll probably be there for this one. So.
Yeah.
And obviously, Zane Trace has the very low huddle camera.
Yes, very low.
So, you can check that out if nobody's over there. I don't know if anybody will be streaming that one or not. I would assume.
Maybe, but I don't know. We'll see.
Still almost 4 or 5 days away. So
yeah, I would say that's probably going to be, at least the WKKJ game, but they don't put it out. Like I didn't know they were going to be at Unioto Adena until I got there.
Oh, but did Jacob do it or was it somebody else?
No, it was somebody else. I think Jacob's doing the Unioto Adena girls game on Tuesday, so I might say hi to him.
We got to hang out with him.
Yeah, he got sports or broadcaster of the year in the Prospect League. Yeah. He just got
2 months.
He got a letter from the governor.
Oh, did he post it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I saw he won, but that was like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to go look at that. I didn't even see
that. I gave it a heart thing on the Facebook.
All right, last game we're going to talk about Miami Trace and Washington. Crosstown battle between the two. Trace winning last time 65-50. Although, as you said, Courthouse hasn't played a ton, so there's not a lot to go off of. But the FAC has been tough. Where is this game at?
At Courthouse.
At Courthouse. So you got to go to Courthouse, which it's like going from Unioto to Chillicothe. It's not much of a road game, but it's still a different environment. I don't know. I don't know. This is sort of a tough game for me to gauge.
Yeah, I was surprised the first one was as lopsided as it was. I think this has a chance to be really good. I think the teams, with Rickman and Wall, I think Washington has a slight advantage in the backcourt. But man, if they don't shoot the ball very well that night, then I think that's a big advantage for Miami Trace. I think they may have a slight advantage inside, even though Heathcock's really good. I think they've got a little more size. I just think this is going to be an interesting matchup. A win for Miami Trace, and they might shoot up to the 2 seed. As they've played, a good non-league schedule, they've got to stack up some wins to, if they can win at Minford this weekend at Washington, I might have them. They might be my pick for the D2 district.
Who's that? Trace.
If they can win at Minford and at Washington, I might. Whenever we pick
and at Fairfield.
Yeah, well, that's next week.
Yeah.
But if they win those 3 games, I might pick them. That's also me saying that without seeing Marietta or Warren play this year. But
then Marietta seems like they're pretty solid on both sides.
Yeah, and they've got a really good big. Warren's got a really good point guard. New Lexington's got a really good point guard. He just scored his 1,000th point. Division II is crazy because, think about it. It's likely that one of these 2 teams is probably not going to get out of the sectional.
Trace and Courthouse.
Yeah, because only 4 teams get out this year, and then we don't really know what's over there with that other side. Maybe Marietta and Warren and New Lex are just playing awful teams. I don't think they are, but maybe they are. So maybe we don't know much about their schedule, or maybe our teams that we think are good aren't nearly as good as theirs. Yeah. So,
obviously for Miami Trace, you have Armstrong, Bodecker, Guthrie seems like he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable. It's his first year. I think he's a sophomore, but it's his first year
varsity,
sort of in a varsity role. And then, I mean, for Courthouse, right? I mean, I don't know if you said it, but it's sort of those big three guys with Haithcock, Wall, and Garrett Rickman, who Rickman has shown how quickly. I mean, he can just snap. Because first half against Unioto was like, you know, I thought this guy was averaging 18 points per game, and then second half it's like, oh, okay, this is the guy averaging 18 points a game, because a lot of those shots, like if you watch the second half, it's like, how did he miss some of those shots in the first half? Because a lot of those were like catch and shoot, wide open.
Maybe that's
the
why.
Top of the key corner,
because a couple of the shots, like the shot he made when they were up 1,
the dagger
was such a. You probably wouldn't tell him to shoot that.
No,
but
was crazy.
He shot it with confidence and just absolutely buried it.
Yeah.
And like you said, when he had his feet set, it wasn't as good. But when he was dribbling into it,
yeah, he seems like a lot better shooting off the ball than catch and shoot, or shooting off dribble than off of catch and shoot. But I mean, how big has he been for Washington Courthouse coming on the way he has this year? Because coming into the season, it's like, because last year he averaged, like 6 points? Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, you have Wall and Haithcock. That seems like it's more or less going to be it. And then, I mean, Rickman has just taken over as their leading scorer. And then, I mean, Wall has continued to do what he has improved on over the last couple of years. And then, I mean, Haithcock has always been pretty consistent underneath. I mean, his stats are a little better this year because you don't have Lee Master anymore to vulture any, like, points underneath or any rebounds.
It's easier for one big to score than two.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, and then like Rickman, like you mentioned, 16 points a game this year. I mean, he's just been really good. Haithcock 14.5 and almost 10 rebounds a game.
And I mean, you always tell me don't look at common opponents, but it goes back to, I mean, it's the first game of the year, but Miami Trace loses to Unioto by like 14, and then Courthouse beats them by 12. So I don't know. We'll see. The whole common opponents thing has not been a very successful comparison tool this year, whatsoever, especially in the FAC.
Well, and I just, their losses, Miami Trace and Bishop Reedy, so they've lost to some really good teams. And, Miami Trace, without their head coach, I think he's still out. Like, Coach Ackley, hopefully he's still, getting better throughout, but they've been playing pretty good as of late. 8-0 in the FAC. So when I said we'd talk about the FAC, I didn't realize that it was actually going to be over after this week. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have technically one league game left, but
the league title
will be decided. Yeah, because they still got to go to. Or they still got Hillsborough to end the regular season.
I mean, Hillsborough's been
very up and down.
Yeah.
Let me pull up Washington real quick. But yeah, so this one should be a big one. I'm sure we'll have someone there.
That's funny that you said that, because we won't.
I know. That's why I did the eyes thing. I did the eyes emoji without putting the emoji out there. But yeah, so that one should be a big game. I think it's going to be interesting to follow. Like, there'll probably be like 3 places that are streaming it in some way, and you'll have different chances.
The WCH, I forget, it's like WCHS TV or something, Washington Courthouse TV, and then
that Campus Nation. I would guess they would be there.
Probably do it.
And then I think I'm sure Buckeye Country will be there streaming it, or like.
I don't even know what Buckeye Country
105.5, it's radio. Yeah, I think. That might not be a thing anymore.
I've never heard of that, but I haven't heard of a lot of things. I mean, I didn't know Jacob got that thing on Facebook. I think
what was it? There was something else you said that was real dumb last week.
On the podcast?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know something? Or
like, oh man, it was so dumb. Was it about Robin Hood?
Yeah, you said something about Robin Hood, and I said Red Riding Hood.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. All right. So Courthouse still has, they've got a tough end of the schedule. Even though they haven't played very many games, they don't have very many games on the schedule. They got Zane Trace, Miami Trace, Vinton County all at home in the next 3. At Hillsborough, Logan Elm, who still, even though they're not having a very good year, is still Logan Elm. And then they're at Jackson to finish the regular season. So,
okay.
not the easiest road for Miami or Washington as well.
That Logan Elm final is going to be like 41-29 Courthouse with the win, or like 35-25.
And Nehemiah Wall's going to have 24 of those.
Like Logan Elm, like can't average 10 points a quarter, but they're going to hold you to your season low on defense. I don't know if their possessions take forever, or I mean if they just rebound offensively like maniacs, or if they just have stellar defense. But I mean, if they could just put together, I mean, if they could average 12 points a quarter, they might have a winning record right now.
Yeah,
they've beaten Circleville
twice. Once 30-28.
I think they almost beat Fairfield Union. They may have beat Fairfield Union. I don't keep up with the MSL Buckeye as much as I probably should, but it also doesn't help they have to play Taze Valley and Bloom Carroll twice this year. And
I'll tell you you want to know what's shocking? They give up 44 points a game. Because
did they let somebody score like
74
or
against Bloom Carroll?
Yeah.
But that's the only game out of the 50s. Taze scored 59 on them.
Those are the best two teams they've probably played.
Yeah, New Lexington scored 58, but they scored 53 on them. So, I mean, they did give up 60 to Hamilton.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think the 53 might be their most they scored. Like, they are not fun to play against.
Especially at Logan Elm.
Yeah, you're like, Logan Elm, 6-10. Yeah, get ready to
Zane Trace,
get ready to get grinded all game long, and you're not going to get an open shot. And if you do, you're getting bodied into it, and it's just going to be miserable.
All right, let's talk about some girls basketball. We've got a couple players. Pretty much both have been making frequent appearances on the podcast, and rightfully so. First, we'll talk about Peyton Johnson for Peebles. A triple-double against Mason County. 56-50 win over Hillsborough. She had 27 and 10 rebounds in that one. I mean, she's been doing it all year. She's one of the most explosive players in our area. I think Peebles right now is like half a game. I wrote it down. I should have just read what I wrote. Peebles is a game and a half out of first place in the SHAC 1. They're in third, as Lynchburg is half a game out of first. Now, North Adams and Lynchburg play this week. They play tonight, actually. So those numbers I just read out in terms of the standings probably won't be the same when this is released.
Right.
But Monday at 3:50, Peebles is a game and a half out of first, and Lynchburg is a half game out of first. So if Lynchburg is able to win, that would tie Lynchburg, Clay, and North Adams, because I think Peebles is technically 2-1 against North Adams because they beat them in one of the classics. But in terms of regular season play, 1-1. Now Peebles D3.
Yes.
Okay, that's unfortunate. I wish they were D4.
Yeah.
But they are one of the bigger teams in the SHAC, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so they're not even close.
Let me switch over to the girls.
But, I mean, like a player like Johnson, I mean, they're 16-2, so clearly they're probably a top 5 or 6 seed in Division 3.
2 right now.
2, so they're really high up there, and Portsmouth is probably 1.
Portsmouth is 1. So Adena's 3, but Adena... I lost the Unioto won't drop them that much because their win percentage is still going to be really good. So,
but I mean, for Peebles, right? They're at Eastern, and then they host Ripley this week. So that's most likely 2 more wins for them. I mean, when you have a player like Johnson, and it seems like the supporting cast is a little better and more consistent this year than it was last year. I didn't write down any specific names.
Oh, I got you.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Cadence Carroll is one.
Yeah,
there we go.
7.4 points, 6 rebounds a game. She is, never mind. Not what the 3-point and free throw percentage was different. She has not even attempted a 3 on the year, so I can't say she's a good 3-point shooter because we don't know. She's a smart 3-point shooter. No, but Abigail Smalley has made 42 threes on the year. She's shooting 34%. She's averaging 10.2 points a game for them. Angel Gray, 5.4 points.
And, I mean, with Carroll and what did you say? The other?
Smalley.
Like, and that's why when you have a player like Johnson that can penetrate and finish up top, and I'm not sure what her 3-point percentage is.
It's 26%, but still, that's like, that's not bad.
But, like, you just need players that, off the screen they can catch the pass and finish, or when Johnson is driving, kick it out beyond the arc, they can knock it down at a high percentage, and that's what you need, because that makes it to where teams can't double and triple team a player like Johnson. And what is she averaging on the season? Like
she's
26 or something?
23.5, 9.6 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. Also 5.9 steals.
Yeah, so like one of the best players, if not the best girls player in our area, at least statistically speaking, is she's just been explosive for them the last couple of years. And what a run Peebles has had with girls basketball players. I mean, it's just one right after the other, it seems. So, yeah, I mean, 16-2, the 2 seed in Division 3, so they'll host they'll actually host a sectional game instead of having to go to Minford like they did last year. That would be a matchup I would be interested in seeing a rematch in. Now, obviously, we're not going to get that at the sectional round,
right?
But I mean, in the districts,
but that could be right now.
Probably wouldn't be the districts either, because Minford is probably a top 4.
They're 6.
They're 6.
Right now.
Okay.
They we're getting ready to go cover their game tonight. They really need to win, because a win would probably get them out of Portsmouth's
I feel bad for whoever has to play Portsmouth, because I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't think any girls team in Division 3 is beating in our coverage area is beating Portsmouth before the district round. So, it's just kind of, it is what it is. I mean, you catch them on an off night. I mean, you never know. I mean, but more than likely it's maybe last year when they had 6 players, but they have 8 now. So, or 9, I think is what they play with. Yeah. So it's
it is a big difference for them. So, I'm very impressed with them. But like you mentioned with Johnson, she's got a big time chance to add on to those numbers this week.
Was she Player of the Year in Division 3 last year?
Because Leonard. I think Johnson might have been when she was a sophomore, though.
She better win it this year.
Yeah.
Well, Division 3, well, it's hard to tell now, because Allen has been going crazy, and I can't think of any others.
I think that's and then you got the Lynchburg trio.
That is true.
Yeah, that's coming up, I think, this week.
What?
We'll talk about that next week.
What, the voting?
No. The other for Lynchburg, Addison West.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to score 1,000. Yeah, because ETN just got it, and then Massey got it earlier in the season. And that's got to be the first time 3 players have gotten 1,000
in the same class.
Season. That's crazy. But, I mean, that's why they're playing tonight for first place in the SHAC 1, because they have 3 players that can really dish it out. And I think we're going to talk about that game here in a little bit, so we won't dive too far into it right now. But we'll move on. Our other player, once again, another player. We haven't talked about the team a lot, but, I mean, Airah Lavy has just been getting it done all season for them. They're 9-9, but she's now the all-time leading scorer at Nelsonville. She's over 1,533 points. He's averaging 23 a game. Committed to St. Francis. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Anytime you can become the all-time leading scorer at a school is, a big accomplishment. Especially,
we've had 2 of them this year.
Yeah, especially a school that's been around like Nelsonville for a very long time. So it's not like, I don't want to say I don't want to throw out like South Gallia, but like South Gallia has been around for 30 years. So maybe you don't have the 60 years worth of history there, but yeah, she's been outstanding all year for them. And, with them being 9-9, I would say a big part of that is the fact that she's scoring 23 a game. And, they're doing so much to try to take her away. Other teams are, and she's still able to score and get, Nelsonville to be competitive. I know they graduated a lot last year, which is why they're 9-9.
Well, and they're all. I mean, the TVC Hawking is kind of tough. I mean, you
Ohio.
They're in. Oh, they are in the Ohio. So they're. Oh man, that's still. I mean,
but still, Athens is good. Alexander's good.
Fed Hawk is like 14.
Well, they're on the other side.
Yeah, but I knew they played him at least once, because I think they play the Hawking side. Kind of like the SHAC does. I don't think they,
because they're like right on the verge of 3 and 4. They're 3 this year, but like they're right in the area of being Division 4.
And then like you lose to Warren, who, I mean, they're 12-6. So I mean, it's not like they're losing to sub 500 teams.
Yeah, they lost to Fed Hawk, who's good, Marietta, who's good, Athens, who's good, Alexander is good in overtime.
I think Vinton
Amanda's
County,
good.
I think Vinton County is the only sub 500 team they've lost to.
Yeah, they've lost to good teams, and
they beat them once. They split with them.
Yeah. So I mean,
and they won at Vinton County and lost at home. So.
So I mean, you've got Alexander coming up. Well, I guess that's tonight, or last night, whenever you're watching this, or Monday, whenever you're watching this, whatever. But they've got Alexander, they've got River Valley, who's having, I think, their best year ever. So they've still got a good schedule coming up. Wellston, isn't bad. Logan's not bad. So they've got 4 tough ones to finish the season out, and it's definitely impressive to be able to do that feat for her. And, there's a reason why she's going to go play Division I basketball.
Right. All right, let's talk about a couple teams. Let's first talk about Jackson. And I know Maddie Walburn just recently committing to Otterbein to play once she graduates, but I don't know what Jackson's overall record is looking like.
That's
now.
what I was pulling up.
But
they are 15-2.
Yeah, 15-2.
9-0 in the FAC. They won the conference for the 3rd straight year.
Yep.
I mean, just really impressive. You mentioned with Walburn, Otterbein commit. Anytime you can go play at the next level, it's pretty impressive. So between her and TJ Carpenter, they've got 2 big scores. I'm pulling that up too. Well, they don't have it up.
I mean, yeah.
But with Jackson, they've gone out. They've played some good teams. They've played well throughout the year, and that's what's going to get them a pretty nice seed come tournament time. I'm going to pull that up too.
Well,
so.
and being a team in Division II right now for girls is just, it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Because you're most likely going to have to play Unioto, Sheridan, or Fairland at the district, and I mean for teams like Circleville, for teams like Jackson who have success in the regular season, it's going to be tough to get out of the district because some of these other teams are just loaded. And the worst part is you looked at a lot of these teams from a season ago and they're the exact same team. I mean, Unioto's more or less the exact same at the top. And then Fairland loses Tommy Hinkle, but Bailey Russell has improved. And then, I mean, Bree Allen, Kylie Bruce, Godby, you've got all of those guys coming back. And then, I mean, Sheridan, I think Stenson is back. I don't remember the other girls' names.
Everybody.
But, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's like pick your poison, because with 3 of those teams at the top, you're guaranteed to play at least one of them.
Yeah, and and then like you mentioned, Circleville hasn't lost. Now, how are they going to react? Obviously probably playing without Addison Edgington. Hopefully she recovers soon for them. Physically from all of that from this past week. So, they're still undefeated for a reason. Jackson right now looks like they may match up with them in like a district semifinal, but even playing like a Waverly team to get out. I mean, Waverly did something they haven't done,
like 24 years.
Yeah. Well, and beat Wheelersburg last week. So, I mean, it's not a fun sectional, and this Jackson team seems like they have themselves set up to at least get a home game and possibly win a sectional title. And, after that, you just kind of never know how it lies. They do have at least a couple more tough ones coming up. They've got Unioto next Wednesday. They've got Logan coming up. I mean, Logan record-wise isn't real good, but, they've still got them who's pretty difficult, and they're at Waverly next Monday, and then Unioto at home on Wednesday. So, very impressive season for the Iron Ladies.
There we go. One of the few women's teams in our area that actually changes the name from man's to ladies or women or whatever. Because what all is there? There's Rock Hill, that's the Red Men, and we've just said Red Women. I've heard so many people say Hunts Ladies over the years, and
I have not seen Hunts Ladies, so I'm still not saying it. But yeah, it's I don't like to say the Lady Huntsman or the Lady Ironmen, so I like it going to the Iron Ladies. So, impressive team.
Let's talk about Notre Dame. They're 13-2, well on their way to another SOC 1 title. It's pretty much the name of the game over at Notre Dame. Now, I mean, you look to the D4 tournament. I mean, who are we thinking might step up in there to combat? I mean, we've talked about South Gallia, and we're going to see them on Wednesday. We'll talk about their game with North Adams here in a little bit. But I mean,
South Gallia, because Waterford's going to be the one. Waterford is 14-2. They have a sizable lead in the RPI over Notre Dame. And South Gallia looks like they're going to be the 3. Sims Valley is in there as well, but I think Notre Dame kind of handled them. Whiteoak, Green, Valley. I mean, this is the division that, like, Valley right now is the 7 at 5-12. So there's only 6 teams over 500 in this district. So I mean, I feel like Notre Dame has an excellent chance to get to a district final.
Yep.
Without a lot of issue. And man, they're talented. Gracie Allen. I mean, she's averaging.
Ashley. Yeah. There you go.
Gracie Allen is a comedian who's not been alive for a long time. So, yeah, but
I've never heard of her.
Yeah, she definitely hasn't been alive while you have been. But Gracie Ashley, 15.7 points a game, 8.7 rebounds a game. Very, very good inside. Katie Strickland's another one, 12.6 points, 8.9 rebounds a game. Ella Kirby just broke the school record for most threes in a game with 8. Yeah. She's averaging right around 10 points a game.
Did we see what the box score was for that?
No, are you looking at it now?
I will. Okay. While you keep yapping.
Bryan Hicks.
Remember what game it was?
I do not.
Okay, well, I'll take a look-see at some of these.
Yeah, the internet here.
It works fine for me.
Yeah, because your computer's not junk. But yeah, Notre Dame right now is sitting at 2 seed. They are pretty dominant in their in-conference play. We saw Green on Wednesday.
Yep.
I like what they're very young. Why can't I think of the name right off? Yeah, Knapp.
Abby Knapp.
Yeah, Abby Knapp is very good. We were impressed with her. She didn't have the biggest scoring game against Huntington, but Huntington did a lot to try to take her away. And that Huntington team, like you mentioned, if the SVC, if Unioto and Adena weren't just absolute gladiators, like this is a Huntington team that, say, my sophomore year in high school, like probably has a pretty good chance to win the league, because it's just you put Huntington in the SOC 1 right now, they would probably compete. They played Notre Dame the first game of the year, didn't they? Didn't they beat Notre Dame to start the year? No, that may have been last year.
Was it last year? Because I mean, it's just a team that if they were, it seems like, or put them in the SHAC.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate the conference they're in is really all it is, because what are they now, like something like 11-6 or 12-6? So, I mean, look for them in the D3 tournament.
I mean, and they almost beat Adena at Adena.
Yeah. So I mean,
right now they're the 11.
We've said it a lot with
13-6.
Right, and I mean in the D3 tournament, I mean obviously whoever plays Portsmouth is just going to have to just pray that you catch them on their worst night of the year. But I mean, on the other side, how many? Oh, you said 3 teams get out of Division 3.
Yeah, so they've got a chance to get out of that. So
they're a good team. They just play in a tough conference. Unioto Division 2, Adena, a fellow Division 3. So I mean, a chance for them to match up for the 3rd time this season. Are you looking at the RPI for Division 3 girls? Because I was kind of curious where Huntington was sitting in relation to like an Adena.
Huntington is 11. Adena is 3. They're a good bit behind them. Okay. Adena, I mean, their win percentage is just so high, so that creates a big difference there. But Huntington could jump South Webster to get to the 10, but it looks like they're kind of in that 10 to 12 area, because I think Alexander could maybe jump them.
Kirby was 8 of 15.
That's still,
that's 50%.
Yeah,
it's
tough to do that.
53%.
Yeah, it's tough to do that if you just go out right now. Like if we got on the nice court. Give me a few minutes to warm up. Like you saw me the other day. That was rough. But like once I got warmed up, I knocked one down and then I quit because
I ended on a make.
Yeah, always end on a make. But yeah, Notre Dame, they lost to a good Martin County team in double overtime. Their other loss was to a really good Fisher Catholic team, who I think they still may play that as a makeup. They've got Ashland Blazer coming up this week. They also have Green coming up. Although maybe not Blazer, because right now on Max Preps they're scheduled to play Blazer and Clay on the same day, which that Clay game may overtake that because of league play. But you've got, their non-conference left. They still have South Gallia and right now Fairland in their non-conference. So they are challenging themselves.
That game, isn't that like the last game? It's like February 10th.
12th.
12th.
Yeah.
That'll be
the 10th is South Gallia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's break down a couple conferences. On the girls' side, we'll break down both sides of the SHAC. We'll start with the SHAC one. We've sort of already alluded to it a little bit. North Adams and Lynchburg Clay meeting for the second time Monday night. North Adams taking the first one. If North Adams wins, they will remain in sole possession of first. If Lynchburg wins, for the time being, they're in a share.
Yeah, and if you're Peebles, you're rooting for Lynchburg. Because after this game, all North Adams would have is at West Union, which they'll more than likely win that. Even though it is a Adams County rivalry, they're significantly better record-wise. So, but Lynchburg still will have 3 league games left to play after that, because they would have at West Union, at Fayetteville, and then Peebles to finish the season. So they don't have anything easy. Right now they are in like a virtual tie at the top. North Adams is a half game up, but it's and then Peebles is, a game behind. So Peebles is hoping that they get a chance on the last game of the regular season to play Lynchburg for a chance to win the championship. Right. So that's the biggest thing there is you've got 3 teams in the SHAC 1 that still have a chance: North Adams, Lynchburg, Peebles. And then in Division 2, it's a big one coming up on Thursday with Fayetteville at Whiteoak, more or less a championship game. But Fayetteville still has some games left after that. That'll be Whiteoak's last league game. Fayetteville would still have Lynchburg Clay and then at Fairfield to finish. So if Fayetteville wins that, they would get at least a share of the SHAC 2. So that's a big game there. Couple of other conferences. I was
going to say, we will break down the SVC and the OVC, but that sort of just falls under the game previews. As we have 2. It's kind of similar to the Lynchburg North Adams deal, where one team could win to take sole possession or another team could win to draw a share. So, we can go ahead and start with the SVC. Tuesday night, Adena traveling to Unioto for their second meeting. Adena 10-1 on the season in the league. Unioto 11-0. Both teams well over 15 games won in this season.
Yeah, and I think this game is maybe a little more interesting now, because the first time around, Unioto won 55-36. Adena was without Emma Garrison, who was last year's SVC Player of the Year. She will be back for this one. Unioto is not healthy. We'll see who they have on Tuesday whenever they play that game, but I still really like Unioto's team makeup right now. They are led by Miley Smith, 17.4 points, 6.2 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 2.7 steals, 1.4 blocks. The blocks leads the SVC. I believe the points leads the SVC as well. Maya Hamilton, we'll see if she's able to go. 16.9 points. She's been awesome this second half of the year. Hopefully, she gets some good news and is able to get going, because she is, she had that huge week where she scored 100 points in the 4 games where they played. 16, like I mentioned, 16.9 points, 3.4 steals. Even without her, they're still really good. Amaris Betts just went over 1,000 points the other day. She's 13.1 points a game. She's made 43s on the season, 4 steals a game. Amelia Urig, 6.2 points a game, 6.7 rebounds a game. She's going to Marietta for a reason. Magnolia Holbert's been playing really well for them since moving into the starting lineup as well. Abby Marshall, if she's got to play bigger minutes, the other day she was 4 for 4 from the field against Westfall on senior night. So, she can do some things for them as well. But Adena with Emma Garrison, 17 points a game, 6.2 rebounds. She's made 23 threes on the year. Marley Halcomb, a freshman, 12.6 points a game, 4.9 rebounds a game, 32 threes made on the season. And those going back a couple games, so I think she's probably added to that. But then Kara Williams, I think she got her performance of the week this week. She had a 17 points, 9 assists, and 9 steal game the other day. So she's averaging a little over 8 points a game, 4.6 assists per game, which is second in the SBC. She's nearing 3 steals a game as well. Just been really good for them. She's grown every year as a player, and that's part of the reason why they're sitting at 17-1 right now. And then Sydney Ader, 7.8 points, 2.1 steals per game. She's been big in a couple of their games. She was really big for them in that win against Huntington. I mean, this is a matchup where, I think it's possibly a little more even, but Unioto at home, I think, is the favorite. This game's going to be on, I think, Litter Media is going to have the radio, and definitely WKKJ will. I know that for sure. So,
well, then I think the Huddle camera is always on.
Yeah.
And the gem on YouTube.
Yeah,
so if nobody
it's either YouTube or the Huddle fan cam.
It seems like it's been on YouTube because you told me it wouldn't be, but I feel like the last couple times.
Yeah, the boys have definitely been on the YouTube, which for our streaming numbers, we still did pretty good, but it would have been better without that like 500 that they got over there. But so if you want to get out and watch this game on Tuesday, you're going to have a chance to. Now, the SVC comes down to this game as if Unioto wins, they'll get a share of the league. If Adena wins, it's more than likely going to be a split league, although Unioto still have Southeastern left, Southeastern and Zane Trace. And Adena, I think, would be... I'm not sure who they have the last two, but I know they are done with Southeastern and Huntington. So, Payton's been playing better, but I think they've already played Payton twice, but we'll see on that.
Who, Adena?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing the score for the second time. Then obviously we did the first time.
So I would say if Adena wins, they're going to get a share.
Yeah, most likely. All right, let's talk about Wednesday night, South Gallia at North Adams. No league implications, not even in the same division, but two teams atop of their conferences, two teams towards the top of their district rankings in terms of the RPI. So, I mean, this is about as good as a non-league game can get. North Adams 14-4, one loss in the league in the SHAC, and that obviously being to Peebles. They lost to Peebles twice, but the one time that was technically a league game for them. Kinley Jones, sorry, my laptop went off. And as we talked about, big game beforehand on Wednesday against Lynchburg Clay. But then on Wednesday against South Gallia, I mean, you have Kinley Jones, 15 points per game. Caitlin Borger is over 10 points per game, averaging 10.2. She scored 10 or more in 7 straight. Harley Brands at 9.1 and Tatum Grooms is at 8.1. So, I mean, they've got a lot of contributors that are pretty consistent for the Green Devils. Obviously, they won a district title last year. They graduate Hupp and Ruckle, I think, were the only two they graduated. But, I mean, those are two starters that you lose, and that's why you see Borger, Brand, and Grooms. I think maybe Grooms was the one that didn't start.
Yeah, she came off the bench, but she played a lot late in the season.
So, I mean, obviously now I'm assuming – I haven't seen them yet. I'm assuming she's in a starting role, so her numbers have gone up. And then for South Gallia, they're new to our coverage area, but, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff for them. They're 13-4, 7-0 in the SOC2, so with only 5 teams in that conference, they've more or less locked up. The league title is the only other team in the SOC2 above 500 is Sims Valley, who is 6-1. That one loss being to South Gallia, 72-48 back on December 18th. So it seems as if South Gallia more or less has the SOC2 locked up. Yeah. And I mean, just going back to last year, I mean, that they tied for second in the TVC Hawking, but I mean, that they split with Waterford in the regular season and they beat them. I think it was in the first or second round of the tournament.
Second, because it was one of the first times Waterford hadn't won a district in years.
So, I mean, technically tied the league, but I mean, I would consider that winning the league as you went 2-1 against the team that you tied with. I think they won like 22 games last season. So, yeah, I mean, the back-to-back win seasons of 15 or more wins, 22 last year. I think it was 16 the year before that. they didn't. They used to upload their stats, but around the 8th game they stopped. So at the time, Morgan Lyons was averaging like 14.2, so she's probably still above 10 points per game. And then Tori Triplett was around 12, so I'm guessing she is still above 10,
Right.
as it seems like through about the first half of the season, those were their top 2 scores. Lyons also averaging 8 rebounds a game. Like I said, not really any implications at all. This is just a good Division 4 team out of the SOC 2 and a good Division 3 team out of the SHAC 1. It's non-conference, nothing on the line. Just,
Well, I will
about
say,
as good of a middle of the week game can get.
yeah. So I will say there is a little on the line though, because North Adams right now is in the 5 spot in the Division 3. South Gallia is a 3. They're probably going to stay in the 3, but for North Adams, if they can just keep adding wins, which this would be a big one to get, they're going to avoid dropping to the 6-7. The 6-7 are the ones that are in with Portsmouth.
Yeah.
So
I kind of forgot about
yeah,
all that.
the 5 would be with the 2, which would be Peebles, which they've shown to they can beat 33% of the time. So you never know if it comes out. If they play a 4th time in the district championship game, that'd be nuts. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really good matchup. I it's going to be our first time ever streaming a South Gallia athletic event. So that'll be pretty exciting to get eyes on the Rebels. And, I've heard a lot of really good things about, their team makeup. I know they had a player who's been out for most of the year. I don't think she'll be back. And that probably would have made them, one of the big time favorites in Division 4, but they're a really good team. And I'm excited for this matchup.
Well, they have a cool mascot. They have the UNLV cowboy thing. That's one of my favorite. I should say their logo is cool. Let me tell you something. If we walk into North Adams on Wednesday and I see a cowboy walking around, we got to get more mascots. The SHAC does it right.
Yeah.
There's no Green Devil at North Adams, but apparently Fairfield has the lion guy.
Well, and I'll give Portsmouth credit. They've got a Trojan. It's just a student that does it. Yeah, they've got the Trojan captain or whatever, general, whatever. But yeah, it's just, I think they just have a senior that gets to dress up as the Trojan every game. But yeah, so that should be a really good, matchup. Make sure you check it out on the YouTube.
Yeah, that'll be our second live stream this week. Monday night will be West and Minford, and then Wednesday night we'll have North Adams and South Gallia, and then we'll be off until actually we don't know because we don't know what we're going to do. Next Friday we'll have Wheelersburg and Minford boys. We haven't really figured out that could be our first game, as it could be a Friday Saturday deal, but typically we go middle of the week and then Friday or Saturday. But we'll see. Then a game you talked about a little bit earlier, Fayetteville at Whiteoak. SHAC 2 championship game on the line here.
Yeah, and the Rockets won the first game 56-44. Scarlett Crawford was really big in that game. She had 16. All 8 Rockets that played in the game scored, which is kind of something that seems like it's been a thing this year, is they play 8 and all 8 can contribute for them. Whiteoak also committed 20 turnovers in the loss. For Fayetteville, they have 1 senior on the roster and she's only played in 4 games. So I don't know if that's an injury thing or just not in the rotation, but they've got pretty much everyone coming back next year. They're led by, some of these points per game are kind of wild with how balanced they are. Riley Kleemeyer, she's a junior, 10.2 points a game, 7.8 rebounds a game. Lily Carlier.
Carlier.
Yeah, Carlier. We'll go with that because that sounds fancier. She's a sophomore, 8.6 points a game. She shoots 39.4% from 3. She's made 26 threes on the year for them. Cara Rummel, a freshman, 8.6 points a game. Scarlett Crawford, as I mentioned, a sophomore, 8.6 points a game. And then another freshman in Christina Murphy, 7.1 points a game and 5.9 rebounds a game. So you've got all kinds of youth for Fayetteville. The Rockets will come into the game with a 1-game lead over Whiteoak, but if Whiteoak wins, they'll more than likely get a share of the league. But Whiteoak, when you say, Fayetteville very young, Whiteoak very experienced. Dailey Parr leads them 13.4 points a game. She's a senior. Also, Lydia Carr, another senior, 8.7 points a game, 8.8 rebounds a game. Then another senior, Molly McMullen. She averages 3.6 points a game, but she's solid for them. And then a couple juniors, Kylie Ham, 9.8 points, 7.1 rebounds, and then Addison Roberts, 4.1 points and 4.4 rebounds. So you're going to have youth against experience in that game. Obviously, with Fayetteville winning the first time around, you'd have to think they're at least a slight favorite even on the road, but this one should be a really good matchup to watch.
And I'm going to check now. I believe this game could be on Good Guys TV this week. So this is a Thursday game.
Yeah.
What date is that? Is that February 2nd, February 1st?
Yeah.
Fayetteville at Whiteoak says it's going to be on 99.5.
So it's just going to be radio?
Yeah, it doesn't look like they'll have that on TV February 1st, yeah.
But
they don't have a TV game that day, so maybe if they
maybe
find
they
out.
will. Maybe that's one of those like, hey, well, what is it the NFL does?
Flex.
Yeah, maybe it's one of their flex
they
games.
flexed the Fairfield and North Adams game
Yeah.
because that wasn't on there either.
Yeah.
But, big game down in the SHAC. The SHAC 1 is pretty tightly contested, too, so both leagues coming down to the wire.
Yeah, and we'll be able to talk about tonight's game from the SHAC 1 next week with, that's...
And same for the SOC 3 game.
Right,
well.
yeah. So that's why we're not previewing them, because they will happen, in 2 hours?
Yeah,
for
and
us?
we previewed that
last
week. So
yeah, so another one that we're not going to talk about is West at Peebles next Monday. That's a heck of a non-league game. And that's going to be like they're going to know where they're going to be seated at that point. But right now, Peebles is the 2 seed, and
the girls'
West is
seedings
4.
come out this coming weekend.
It'll come out on Sunday, yeah. So we'll talk about it a little bit this week.
I think next Monday we just need to have a bracket show.
Yeah,
but sit there and fill out girls' brackets.
Yeah,
or we could wait.
That might be the week
before
after. Yeah.
We'll try to get the last little bit of like a Peebles and a West game where we can kind of get a grasp on some of these non-conference games, because that's a lot of. What fun is the tournament if you're just playing teams you already played twice?
Right.
I mean, we want to see some...
Or 3 times.
Yeah.
So West and Peebles, that's going to be a big one.
I'm telling you, if
Peebles and North
Adams. Peebles and
Adams.
North Adams play for a 4th time, I'm putting the house on North Adams because it's got to be an even 2-2 split. All right, let's talk about next Monday. Portsmouth at Fairland. Rematch in Proctorville. What a game the first time around. It snapped...
42.
Was it 42 consecutive OVC wins for Portsmouth? For Fairland. I mean, they had just been dominant. It was the first win over Fairland for the Trojans in girls basketball since joining the OVC. So it was like a minimum of 18 straight, and it looked like it was 20 plus as they had played a couple times in the non-league as well. I mean,
and then who knows before that? So
right, because Max Preps only goes back to like 05 or something,
right.
And even like though it goes back that far, it's hard to have some teams have like 6 games in a season on there. So, but I know I'm not going to be at this game. I'm assuming you won't be either, but I'm hoping we get somebody down there because this game is going to be wild.
Yeah, there's a chance, and I'll go ahead and say, I talked to Coach Buchanan, last week down at Wheelersburg. I was like, how'd the girls, react after that? He's like, really good. Handled it really well. If you've looked at the scores, they have handled it very well.
Well, we were saying like we feel really bad for Gallia.
Yep.
Like in the post game, we were like, they beat Gallia by 60 the first time. We feel bad for them because they're going to play them. It was like the next night.
Yeah, beat them by 64. Yeah. So they won by 64. They beat Gilmore Academy, who's played one of the best schedules in Division II. They beat them by 13 up at the. I almost said flying to the hoop, but that's the boys at the Classic in the Country.
Oh, yeah.
Then they beat Rock Hill by 43. Yeah. They scored 96 on Ironton. They almost won that game by 80. Then South Point, they won by 38. And that was at South Point, so, going on the road. They've got Chesapeake this week and Colegrove coming up before Portsmouth. I don't think I'd want to be Chesapeake or Colegrove because it seems like Fairland has refocused and is ready to roll. And, I think I said after that game, I thought I would take Fairland the second time. And I thought it was because they would be able to refocus, but oh my goodness, they have refocused with a vengeance.
So last time they played, I took the underdog. I picked Portsmouth and they won. A big game from Daisha Reed. Sienna Allen did what she did. That he always does. What is Kiki Smith? What was her?
Woods.
Kiki Woods. I mean, did an outstanding job shutting down Bailey Russell. What did they end up winning by? 6?
6. 4. 55-51.
55-51 is 4 points. So
that's what I said.
I thought you said 3.
I said 6 originally.
Oh, okay. It's hard to make a pick again. I don't know.
I'm going to take Fairland just because it's at Fairland, but
man, give me the Trojans again.
there we go.
I feel like I kind of have to just so we have one of each. But I mean, it could go either way. I think Fairland would be the favorite again because it's in Proctorville.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that far of a trip from Portsmouth. From here, it seems like it's forever away.
But, yeah.
But I mean, Fairland's is going to be out for blood. I mean, they're looking to at least get a share. I'm not sure when the last time they didn't at least get a share of the OVC was.
It was only a couple years ago because of Colgrove. Really?
Oh, yeah. I forgot they split with Colgrove. I don't know why I even said that. But for Portsmouth looking to, I mean, they pretty much already have a share locked, but looking to win their first outright OVC girls title and who knows how long.
I don't think they've ever, they haven't done it.
So
because they haven't been in the OVC that long, so
9 years I think is what it's been. I think this
they have not been very good.
I think this is year number 10 in the OVC for Portsmouth. So yeah, give me Portsmouth. I think
I'll tell you what, they're not scared.
Well,
they're not intimidated in any way.
Here's what I think will happen. Sienna Allen will do what she does, right? What did Daisha Reed finish with? Like 21. I don't think she'll do quite that. I think Fairland might be a little more locked in on her than they were the last time. But I think Cantrell will do a lot more. Because, I mean, she was getting open looks. I mean, she missed, what was like 3? Like, they were leaving her wide open for 3s, and I think she'll connect on a few of those this time around. So I think maybe take, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 points from Reed's stat line. So she could, I think she'll still finish with around 15 and give it to Cantrell because I think I don't know. I think Cantrell will come up a lot.
Well, they're gonna if Reed doesn't score that, they're gonna need somebody, and it's got to be Cantrell or Carter. Because I don't know if Woods is gonna score a lot, but she's going to
right. She wears people out. Yeah. Because I just with the way Reed played, and now the problem with stopping Reed is her play style is somewhat unguardable. You just kind of have to hope she's not on because a lot of the shots she's making are tough to contest anyway. So she could go for 21 plus again, but I think, I mean, Fairland might have to send an extra person over there to. And the thing about Fairland was they probably had one of their least successful shooting nights against the Trojans the first time around.
Yeah, they're 7 of 24, which is still not bad.
No,
but for them it is
right. And when you live and die theoretically by the 3, shooting under, what would you say, 7? So shooting under 30% isn't usually going to get it done. And they only lost by 4, so I should probably pick Fairland because I don't think they'll shoot that bad again. But
especially at home, but
I don't care.
But
Trojans,
I think with Fairland, I think obviously they're going to need to shoot over 30% at home or over 30% from 3, but they've got some weapons that didn't do a whole lot in that game. I think Bailey Russell's going to play a lot better. Yep. And they need her to, because if they want to get to the level that they are expecting to get to, they need all of their weapons to get going. And Bree Allen was really good the first time, and I think she can be again this time. And so I think it's going to be a battle.
You're picking Fairland?
I'll take Fairland.
All right, I'll go with Portsmouth.
I'm going to say it'll be a similar score though, but I'm going to say 58-54.
Okay. I mean, that seems. I mean, both teams defensively are pretty sound, but offensively they're off the charts. So you would expect it to be somewhere in that middle ground, like mid-50s, but not into the mid-60s or anything like that. So, all right. Well, I think
should be fun.
Yeah, that's about all we got. Unless you have anything extra, we gotta get out of here and head down to West for
Senator
our game
Town.
tonight.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Yeah, get to see
Town.
the Ciders and Yeah, that'll be a good one. Make sure you check us out. If you didn't watch it
live,
watch it back, watch the replay
This
back.
buzzer beater ending last time. We really didn't talk about that.
Maggie Reisner with the buzzer beater the last time. So I'm excited to get down there and watch. If it's terrible, just ignore this part. But I don't think it will be. I think that's going to be you're going to earn every point.
It'll be low
game.
scoring.
Yeah.
I know that. It'll be probably
I said
the winning
78 and a
team.
half.
The winning team will score less than 45 points, I would assume. But yeah, it should be a fun way to start off our week. So unless you have anything extra you want to chime in, I know Kenneth is outside waiting on us.
Yeah, we got to go jump in the car and head down to the west side. So it should be fun. So make sure you get out there and watch a lot of games this week. Should be fun. And make sure you follow along, as always, on our socials and whatnot. And check out our sponsors as well.
Yep. All right. Well, with that will do it for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.